Hello everyone, so in this video we are going to look at how to solve problems using fractional indices. So that's when you've got powers which are fractions. So to do this, well, by the end of this video you'll understand how to write fractional powers as roots and vice versa, and we need this to be able to solve problems using fractional indices. So the rule that we need in order to do this is rule number 7, which is in your course notes. So that's when we have a to the power of m over n. So m over n is our fraction. We can write that as a root, which is the nth root of a, and we take that to a power of m. Okay, so the bottom of the fraction, the n, is the root. Okay, the top of the fraction will always be the power. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples. So in the following, we are asked to write these fractional indices as roots. So in the first one, I've got a to the power of a third. I can write this as the cube root of a and take that to a power of 1. Now we know that anything to the power of 1 is itself, so that is just the cube root of a. Okay, so when we've got a root which is 3, we say that's the cube root. Okay, so let's have a look at the second one. We've got b to the power of a fifth. I can write this as the fifth root of b to the power of 1. And again, anything to the power of 1 is itself, so then that is just the same as the fifth root of b. Next, I've got c to the power of 2/3. So here, my root is 3 and my power is 2. So I can write this as cube root of c, and that's all squared. Okay. And finally, for d to the power of negative a quarter, and because we've got a negative index here, a negative power, I need to change this expression where it has a positive power. And to do that, we're going to use rule number 6 from your course notes. So when you change a negative power to a positive power, we divide the expression by 1. Okay, so then we have 1 over d to the power of a quarter. We can now then change the d to the power of a quarter to a root. So then I can write this as 1 over fourth root of d. Take that to the power of 1, and again anything to the power of 1 is itself, so my final answer for this one would be 1 over fourth root of d. Okay, example 2, we are going to look at doing the opposite. So we've got roots, and we need to change them into fractional indices. Okay, so in the first one, I have got my root to be 2 and the power 3. So remember my rule number 7, a to the power of mn, I can write this as the nth root of a, and I'm taking that to the power of m. Okay, so this time I'm going the opposite way. So where n is 2 in this case and m is 3. So then if I write this as a power with a fractional power, then that will be equal to a to the power of 3 over 2. Okay. In the second example, this time I've got 3 to be my root and 2 is the power. Okay, so then using my rule, this will be written as e to the power of 2/3. Then in the last one, I've got root 3, cube root of 3. So my root is 3 and my power is 6. So I can write this as f to the power of 6 over 3. Okay. But because we know that 6 over 3 is equal to 2, then that becomes f squared. Okay. Now we're going to look at some examples from your course notes. So this is on page 36 of your National 5 course notes. It's section 10.2C, where we're asked to evaluate these expressions that involve fractional powers. The first one, I have got 8 to the power of 2/3. So I must evaluate 8 to the power of 2/3. So I need to change, using my rule, I need to change this into a root. Okay, so remember, the bottom number is your root, the top number is your power. So this then becomes the cube root of 8 all squared. Okay, now I need to evaluate this, so I need to work out what this is. Now I know that the cube root of 8 is 2 because 8 is given by 2 times 2 times 2. So then the cube root of 8 is 2. Then I've got 2 squared, and 2 squared is 2 times 2, so the answer is 4. Okay. In the second example, I've got 25 to the power of 3 over 2. So here this time my root will be 2 and my power is 3. So using rule number 7, I can write this as square root of 25. I'm taking that to a power of 3. Okay. Now, square root of 25, well, we know, just a side note, if you have a root 2, if you have a root which is 2, then you can write, we write this as just the square root of whatever your number or letter is underneath the square root. Okay, so we don't usually write this 2, we just write it as a square root of x instead of like this. Okay, so I can write this as square root of 25 all cubed. The square root of 25, I know that's 5 because 5 times 5 is 25. So then we've got 5 cubed. 5 cubed is the same as doing 5 times 5 times 5, and that is, well, 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. Okay, and finally, I've got in the last example, I'm asked to simplify 64 to the power of negative a third. Now, because we've got a negative a third, we've got a negative power, we need to change that into a positive power. So we're going to use rule number 6 for this one. So we first need to change that into a positive power. So in order to do that, we divide this by 1. So we're doing 1. So then we have 1 over 64 to the power of a third. And so now we can use our rule number 7. And when we've got a power which is equal to a third, that can be written as cube root of 64. So 3 is our root, 1 is our power, and again, anything to the power of 1 is itself, so then we've got 1 over cube root of 64. Okay, now we need to work out what the cube root of 64 is, which is 4, because 64 is equal to 4 times 4 times 4. So then I have 1 over 4, a quarter, as my final answer. Okay.